She is a deputy consultant at Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation and Hospital Research Center. She has also worked at Kambala Hill Hospital and Bhatia Hospital. Ma'am has completed her bachelor's and master's degree from SBB College of Physiotherapy at VS Hospital, Ahmedabad, with gold medal for standing first in the state. She has also been awarded during her early career by Significant Contribution Award at 51st National Conference of India Association of Physiotherapy. An expert in conducting metabolic card testing for athletes as well as patients and has conducted more than 300 tests by now. Talking about her academic part, she has published and presented multiple papers and posters in international conference about cardiac pulmonary oncology and intradialysis rehabilitation. She is a contributing author to cancer rehabilitation and organ transplant papers and posters in international conference about cardiac pulmonary oncology and intradialysis. She has conducted multiple seminars and workshops on these subjects in different cities for the community and clinicians. And she is a firm believer of practice what you preach. She is athletic and she has participated in more than 15 half marathons and 10-kilometer runs. We hope that you all would imbibe the max from today's topic and be benefited. Thank you.
चेक कर लेना जब मैं बोल रही हूँ तो सुनाई दे रहा है ना then come. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jenny Patel and I would like to thank Sharad for such a lovely introduction and detailed introduction about me. Can I please request Sharad to share my screen so that I can display my slides? So today's topic we are having is on to cardiac rehabilitation, exercise testing and prescription part. But before I start that, I would like to thank Sharad and Gitanshu who have given this opportunity to me to speak about this and share my knowledge. And I am really impressed with the work that they do with Ashray, their initiative about NGO work and about spreading awareness about people and everything, which is fantastic and which is really commendable. Give me a moment by the time I share my screen. Share.
Yes, now.
I hope everybody is able to see. So today we are going to talk about in brief about what is cardiac rehabilitation. How do you start the exercises? How do we do the risk stratification? How do we do the exercise testing and prescription? So cardiac rehabilitation by definition from American Heart Association is a medically supervised program which consists of exercise training, education on heart healthy living, counseling to reduce stress, and helping patients to actually return to their active lifestyle and recover fast. So as we all read this, most of the time even I have done that we stop at reading at exercise training and that is all we think the cardiac rehabilitation is about. But there is education which is very important, there is counseling which is very important, and the goal is to return the patient to the active lifestyle, which I've learned over last 5-6 years working over here. And without that, cardiac rehabilitation is not complete. It offers multifaceted and highly tailored approach to boost overall physical, mental, and social functioning of people with heart-related problems. So, how does it benefit? So cardiac rehabilitation, these are the values which I'm going to show you, which I were also not aware about. It causes 45 to 47% reduction in mortality after a cardiac event. It causes 30% lesser hospital readmission. So if somebody has got a cardiac event, the chances of them going to hospital in emergency after that, if they are doing cardiac rehab, they are 30% lesser. 30% improved adherence with preventive medications. So what happens is usually I'm going to in between I'm going to talk in English because most of our people who have registered, they are English speaking. If you find me too fast, please just drop a message, or if you want me to change the language, please drop a message. So there is 30% improved adherence with preventive medication. So what happens is, once somebody gets a cardiac event, suppose there is CABG which is done, or there is angioplasty which is done, the belief is that now everything is fine, and they go back to their routine behavior, and most of the patient, they fail to adhere to those medicines for a long time to maintain their blood pressure or blood thinners. So people who enroll for cardiac rehab, they have 30% more chances of having good adherence with that. Increased exercise performance, that is very explanatory. Improvement in the blood pressure, blood sugar, and lipid profiles. Improved exercise capacity, reduced angina, and then this list can go on for long, but I've just highlighted the most important parts of it. How does exercise help? So the previous benefits were as an entire cardiac rehab program, while the exercises have a lot of direct as well as indirect effect on risk of having further events after already having one. So it improves overall fitness levels, it improves function of the heart, it reduces weight, it helps to reduce the sugar levels in patients who are diabetic, it helps to reduce the LDL cholesterol, which is a bad cholesterol, and it helps to improve the HDL cholesterol level, which is a good cholesterol. So if you see, this looks a very complicated slide, and if you see, the triangle part is showing what are the risk factors which leads to a cardiac event in somebody, and at each stage of it, at each stage of that pyramid, if you see from the basic, as you go on top, the lifestyle modification and exercise has a huge role to play. And on the right side in the circle, it is describing what are the components of cardiac rehab. So just to make it easy for you, I have highlighted them here. So cardiac rehab components are regular exercises, education on heart healthy habits, so having a good lifestyle changes, nutrition counseling, stress management, smoking cessation, blood pressure, lipid and sugar management, that could be pharmacological as well as non-pharmacological, and weight management. So this all completes a loop for a cardiac rehabilitation program. Now, when we are following a program, there has to be something that we refer to, right? So the guidelines for cardiac rehabilitation, there are lots and lots, but these are the major ones which everybody follows across the world. And they are published at interval of 2-3 years every time, and they are revised based on that. So here in HN Reliance Foundation Hospital, we follow ACSM and AACVPR guidelines for the cardiac rehabilitation. Now, as most of you will be aware that the cardiac rehabilitation program has 3 phases, and earlier they used to say there are 4 phases, but the fourth one has become obsolete. So phase 1 is something which is inpatient. So when the patient is admitted and after that they are discharged, before that time period, whatever rehabilitation is done is phase 1. Phase 2 is immediate after discharge rehabilitation, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And phase 3 is more of a maintenance phase, that somebody's got better in their health. How do we carry them on with their positive changes and lifestyle modification? So today my talk is going to be primarily about phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. Now, this is a question which is asked by many of us, and this is the very important slide, that when do we start with rehab, or when do we start with exercise with somebody who has got a cardiac problem? So suppose if somebody has got a myocardial infarction, or they have underwent PTCA, so percutaneous transluminal coronary angiography or plasty, we can start. So within 14 days is the maximum timeline. Okay, so within 2 weeks is the timeline these guidelines are saying that we must start with the exercise and rehab, but we could start as early as within 2 days time. If somebody's got minimal invasive open heart surgery, so any kind of valve repair or those kind of surgery where the sternotomy is not required, where heart lung machine or that is not required, in those kind of surgery, rehab can be started within 4 weeks time. So that's the maximum limit it should be started within, and as early as 1 week's time. If somebody's undergone open heart surgery, so typically any CABG patients or valvular replacement patients or any other surgery patients where there is a sternotomy done, it can be started within 6 weeks as early as 1 to 2 weeks time. So this is where what a guideline says about it. Now, how do we start? So once you have a patient with you, how do you proceed with the rehab? So first and foremost thing is history taking. So we take their history of present illness, so whatever the recent episode was with them about the cardiac problem and what were their symptoms. Basically, it is a very detailed history, and it may involve questions about. So when we are taking all this, we are trying to figure out that actually what kind of activities or what kind of symptoms this person had, so that we know that when we are giving rehabilitation what we have to look for. So if somebody had chest tightness, or somebody had jaw pain, somebody had upper back pain, somebody was feeling short of breath, so those are the symptoms which were there when they actually had that cardiac event going on. And if we are aware about those symptoms, then it is easier for us to keep a check when we are making them do exercise. So that's why having a detailed history about how the events happened and what were the symptoms, it will be very useful. Of course, knowing about blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, smoking, and their weight history, it is important. Medical and surgical history, positive family history. Personal history includes any habits of tobacco, alcohol, smoking, stress. That is all included in the personal history. Nowadays, we also ask them questions about their professional stress, because stress is one of the very important factor which affects your health. And nowadays, unfortunately or fortunately, the work environment is such that the stress levels are very high, and it leads to a lot of influence on your lifestyle, where we don't sleep on time, where we don't eat on time, and where we don't keep a track on how active we are. So that in that way it is important to know the personal history and the stress levels. Exercise history, again, it is very important. So because suppose we have two patients, one who has never exercised in their life, and that patient, if we want to start with rehab, versus there is another patient who used to walk 5 6 kilometers in a day regularly, or there was somebody who was even jogging, or somebody who was involved with lot sports like badminton. So for both the kind of patients, the intensity at which we will be starting the exercise and the goal that we will be setting will be very different. So it is very important to know patients' exercise history part. Medications, so there are a lot of medications that patients are prescribed typically after CABG and any revascularization procedures. And those medications, usually at our center, we ask them to show the prescription. Along with that, we check their medication strips also physically, because at times there are a lot of errors in what they understood and what they prescribe. Also, there are certain medicines that we need to keep in mind which affects the heart rate and blood pressure response to exercise. So knowing those lists is important. Now, when we do all this, at each stage, we are trying to figure out that how it helps us to decide an exercise program. And that is why we take all of this information so that we can plan their exercise accordingly. There are a lot of investigations and reports that we go through. Uh, Sugar profile and lipid profile is one of the very important aspects of that. 2D echo, so we go through the report. We typically look at the left ventricular ejection fraction, which is usually 60%, but it is a very important factor to determine the um, risk stratification of a patient. So, somebody having ejection fraction lower than 30% versus somebody having ejection fraction of 55%. Again, these two patients are going to have very different level of outcomes with rehab, and the intensity of exercise is going to be very different for them. Stress test report. So if they are, it's not done for all the patients, but if the patient has that report, it is a very important piece of paper to look at, and it gives a lot of information about that person's functional capacity. And again, based on that, we could decide our exercise intensity and modify it. There may be additional reports available for the patients, and the list is long, but the top three are the ones which we have to look for if they are available. Uh, this again is a very detailed slide, and I think we should skip it for now. If somebody has any specific questions related to it, we'll go in detail. Uh, yeah. So when we have a patient who has undergone CABG, we look for the date when the surgery was done. So suppose if I am seeing a patient who was operated 2 weeks before versus some patient who was operated 2 months before, it will be again a lot of difference in the approach that we do, because we will be taking a lot of sternal precautions for somebody who's recently been operated versus somebody who's 2-3 months old, like that. Again, we see that whether the patient had on pump or off pump CABG, what kind of grafts were taken, because if they are taken syphinous venous graft or left radial artery graft, then we may need to work onto their pain and adherence of sutures over that area and everything. So that's why it is important to see. Personal habits, I already described that. Knowing that what uh, tobacco or alcohol consumption and the amount that they were taking it, and their willingness to quit. So if they have already quit, how they can maintain that and not go back to those habits. And if they have not, then what interventions we can do to help them get off that habit. Stress management and lifestyle, I think I have spoken a lot about it in the earlier part as well, so that we could keep in check. So, exercise history, as I mentioned earlier, it is important to know what was their exercise levels or interest before the event. So, when I say event, it is any angina or any um, acute episode which led them to the hospital, or which help them to diagnose them that they had a cardiac problem, or they underwent any surgery, or they underwent any procedure. So before that event, what was their exercise routine and their interest versus after the event. Because what happens is, because you got a shock of your life, there are many patients who then change after the event, and now they have started regularly walking and everything, but they have not never done it earlier. So those piece of information are important, because then based on that we can plan our rehab. Knowing their future goals also is very important. So if you have a lady who is 70 years old or 65 years old who's undergone CABG, her future goal may be just to get back to her routine of household activities, and she would want to go back to that level of activity so that she can continue with the household and social activities outside. While if you see a patient who is 60-year-old, so we have a lot of patients over here who really wake up after this incident and they want to participate in marathons, or they want to go back to trekking that they used to do years ago, or there was a patient who was playing lawn tennis, so they want to go back to that level. So discussing their future goals with us is very important. Now, after taking all this, how do we proceed with the exercise testing? So there are two kinds of exercise tests that are available. One is maximal exercise test, another is submaximal exercise test. So when we talk about maximal exercise test, somebody is doing an exercise of an incremental level to an extent that they are completely exhausted. That's the point where they are asked that now you can stop doing exercise. And those are typically, like if you've heard about treadmill test or stress test that many of the cardiac patients undergo, uh, Bruce protocol, that is kind of maximal test. And there are many other ways where we can do the maximal exercise test, but treadmill test or stress test is mostly done as an investigative procedure. So if a patient has that report, usually they want to know while doing that test that whether a person has coronary artery disease or a heart disease. That is the investigative test. But when we talk about prescribing exercises, we may not need to do a maximal test. It is usually not a specific indication that just to prescribe an exercise program you need to do a maximum test. That's not there. On the other hand, we have submaximal tests, which are already decided or described by a time period or by a distance. So we know when to stop the test, and it doesn't just go on, and they don't require the patients to put their all out effort, and that's why we use those tests. At our center, we are using 6-minute walk test for all the patients who enroll in the program, and we use it at the first point, and suppose after a month of rehab we'll repeat the test to know what's the difference. Now, before we conduct any of these tests, it is very important to rule out the contraindications, and these contraindications you will be able to find in any books which are of exercise testing and prescription. So this should be checked, and we have to rule out this before starting the exercise. Now, a typical 6-minute walk test that we do, what are things we look after? So, 6-minute walk test is the easiest test. It is less time consuming. It is more uh, involving day-to-day activity, because walking is that everybody does, right? So you don't need a special skill for that, and you don't need a special machine for that, because you have to just find a 10-meter 20-meter long corridor where you can just put two cones and make the patient walk. So before starting the test, so as you can see, we have put one data of one of the patients where we record all this data. So we take heart rate, uh, blood pressure, SpO2, respiratory rate, and rate of perceived exertion of the patient at rest. Then they are advised to walk for 6 minutes, and we usually tell them to cover as much distance as they can within 6 minutes time. And the immediate time when they sit back in, we take their vitals again, which is mentioned under the peak levels. So we repeat the vitals, and then again the patients are advised to rest for 3 minutes, and after that we repeat the vitals again. So this is how a 6-minute walk test chart look. Uh, this is how we have the place of, this is a 16-meter place that we have for our patients, and we have telemetric ECG monitoring system. So they are just wearing a small device, kind of a pouch on a bag, in a bag, and they just walk over here between these two cones, and we monitor their ECG, heart rate, everything. This is another view. So as you could see in the last, at the end of the test, they go back and sit on the table, and we repeat the vitals again. Now, after all of this, so we have done the history part, we have done the investigations and reports viewing, and we've done the 6-minute walk test. Now, based on all the data that we have gathered, we will be now able to decide which kind of risk this patient has to further cardiac events. So it could be low risk, moderate risk, or severe risk. And this is how usually a table looks like to divide this risk for the event. And based on this risk, we decide the patient's exercise program, whether this patient will start at a very low intensity exercise or a low intensity exercise or a moderate intensity exercise. So this is how our entire assessment will lead you to one page, right? Uh, so after we've done all this, there is something that we have to do before starting the exercise is the goal setting. So the goal of any cardiac rehab. So as you talk in general, what you want to do with cardiac rehab, the general goal is we want to reduce risk of a future cardiac event. So we don't want that patient to again have a cardiac problem, or we want to try reducing that risk for it, either by stabilizing, slowing, or reversing the progression of the disease. And in addition to that, we want to reduce the hospital readmissions of these patients. So I'm just going to play a short video clip so that you could understand it better. Was not audible? All right. So I would just like to repeat what Dr. Contractor said, that there are two goals that we have with a cardiac rehabilitation program. One is we want to reduce their risk of having any future events again. And second goal is to make them better so that they can go back to their active lifestyle or even better than what they were before. So those are the two goals that Dr. Contractor just mentioned about. Now, based that were the general goals. Now, for a patient, we have to decide short-term goals and long-term goals. So that can be done by modification of the risk factors that a patient has. So if someone has a lot of blood pressure issue or somebody is obese, so then the target or the goal towards reducing their weight to certain level will be set. Somebody may have problem with the sugar level, somebody may be not that much physically active. So based on each of their problems for individual patient, the goal setting will be done and accordingly a plan will be made. Now, exercise prescription. So now we have set the goal, we have done the assessment, we've thought about everything. How do we start with the exercise prescription? So this is where we start with. So every patient at the center, they wear that ECG lead. We could, as you could see behind on the screen, we can see their ECG at a time. So it's wirelessly monitored. And we take the resting ECG. We take the resting vitals also. So as you can see, we can take blood pressure. We take the resting heart rate. If they are diabetic, we'll ask them to check their sugar levels. And as you can see, there are a lot of papers lying down on the desk. So we, for each patient, we have one paper where we'll put down all these values each time they come to the hospital. So we'll note these down, and then we have the exercise program which has all these components. So they will first do warm up exercise, then they will do conditioning, which will comprise of aerobic and strength training. Then it will be followed by cool down and flexibility exercise. Now when we are beginning with warm up could be any kind of breathing exercise, any kind of active movements of arms and legs, um, any activity of low intensity which will keep the person's heart rate or the patient's heart rate 20 beats lower than the target heart rate. So I'm going to come to the target heart rate values in the next slides, but whatever exercise heart rate we decide, the warm up heart rate should be almost 20 beats lower than that, and the RP should be lower than 11 when we are making them do warm up. Now, when we are doing exercise prescription, we follow FIT principle, which is F for frequency, intensity, type, and time. That is how we decide. So, frequency for any cardiac patient would be 3 to 5 days a week. So, minimum 3 days, maximum 5 days. If they want to do additional more than 5 days, it is completely okay. Intensity. So there are multiple ways based on which we can decide intensity, but the most common ones in that what we use over here is the heart rate and RP. So of course we could decide it based on the VO2 max value, MET value, which we'll usually find it in the stress test report or by the talk test. When we are using heart rate for deciding the intensity, it should be 60 to 80% of a person's maximum heart rate. So if you talk about me, how do I find my maximum heart rate? Okay, let's talk about somebody else. So if there's a 50-year-old patient and we need to find their maximum heart rate, you will do 220 minus 50. So that would come to 170. And then now you can take 60 to 80% range of 170. That would be their exercise heart rate. So if you are taking 60 to 80% heart rate max formula, you can do that. Or you can also use Carbonins formula, the values of which they are almost close to each other, both the formulas. Other way of deciding exercise intensity is by rate of perceived exertion. So this is a very important scale, but we usually don't give it that much of importance that it deserves. So it is scaled on 6 to 20, and we typically show it to all the patients when they are doing exercise, and we ask them to rate that how they feel when they are doing exercises. And usually if somebody is feeling somewhat hard, then we would little bit lower down the exercise intensity. We want our patients to exercise between 11 to 13, so it's fairly light to somewhat hard when they are doing moderate intensity exercises. Another thing of another way of dealing with it is by a talk test. So when somebody is talking, there is a way we can decide the intensity level. So if somebody is able to sing when they are walking, or they are just doing some kind of exercise, it's a very light intensity exercise for them. If they can talk full sentences but are not able to sing, it means they are at a moderate intensity exercise. And if they can speak a few words at a time and then they have to pause for a breath, then it's a vigorous intensity. And of course, we don't want them to give the maximum effort. So that's not to be considered. So this actually can be useful for patients when you are telling them how to do exercise on their own on other days when we are not monitoring them. This could be really helpful. Now, type of exercises. So there are various ways we can make the patients do aerobic exercises, even by simple walk in their corridor, to this fancy equipment like using treadmill, using elliptical, using bicycle, asking them to do stair climbing, dancing. using arm ergometer, swimming. All these kinds of exercises are aerobic exercises, and depending on person's choice and availability, we can choose any one of them. Now, this is typically a sheet of exercise program that we use for our patients. So as you could see on the top, we have three parts, like a person is doing cycle, they are doing treadmill, they are doing elliptical. So as you can see at the bottom, first day when they had come, we've done their 6-minute walk test. And the next session, so along with that, we started with them some amount of treadmill. Then with each session, we've slowly increased their exercise time. So we take their resting data, we take their exercise data, and then again after completion of exercise, whatever uh, post exercise recovery data is taken for them. Now, in addition to aerobic exercise, the recent advances and recent literature suggests that strength exercises should be very important component of a cardiac rehab program. So, strength exercises increases muscle mass, it increases metabolism, and it has shown positive effects on the cardiac health as well. So, for usually our patients, we use 30 to 40% of 1 RM or 50 to 60% of 1 RM. At times, if we find them very fragile, we can just ask them to start with half kg weight, or even asking them to use TheraBands, which is a very lightweight and easy exercise to begin with. So these are again another kind of form of exercises that could be used, and if we are taking group classes, it could be fun as well as innovative way of doing exercise for them. Now, time. So we have completed FIT principle, if you remember. So frequency, intensity, type, and now we've come to time. How much time one person has to do exercises. So it should be in a week 150 minutes if we are prescribing aerobic activity. And if we are doing vigorous activity or telling if the patients are doing it for long and they are stable and they are enrolling it for vigorous intensity exercise, then 75 minutes time is fine. Now, this is a cumulative time over a week time period, but when we are starting a patient afresh, you may not be able to start directly at 30 minutes. We may start with as low as 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then slowly add on to reach to this level of duration of exercise. Um, yeah. So to summarize, we have FIT principle, frequency, which is 3 to 5 days a week, intensity, which is moderate. So to begin with, it would be light, then over a period of time, moderate, and if everything is well, the person is running for a marathon or started to do very high intensity exercise, then vigorous intensity could be prescribed. Duration, again, to begin with, we could start with just 5 minutes. Even we have seen patients who are so fragile that they are tired in 2 minutes, 3 minutes of walk, and we literally start them with 2 rounds of walking and then slowly proceed over. So that's the so goal is 30 to 60 minutes, but we can start as low as 2 minutes. Type, it could be any kind of aerobic and strength training exercise which patient is able to do and you are able to provide. Now I have one more slide, few more slides after this, which is saying physical activity. So this is very important aspect of a rehab program, because what happens is we've seen a lot of patients that they come, they've done 1 hour of exercise, and then entire day, if you ask them, they're doing nothing. They are sleeping at home, or they have a lot of servants to take care of them, and they basically do nothing. So that is not helpful. So that's why physical activity is also very important in addition to exercise. So apart for that 1 hour, they could just, like, we advise them that you walk while you talk on a phone, or you do some kind of dancing when you are cooking, or you prefer taking stairs over your lift, or we, if they are coming by car, we tell them you can park little far and then walk little more. They can do gardening, they can enroll in any kind of sports, swimming. So there are various ways where they can increase their physical activity levels, which has additional benefits and is important. How do we track if they are doing it right or not? So just now everybody is using their phone to the maximum, and just now in COVID situation, I think it would have been double, triple than what we use. So these are these fancy apps which are available on phone, and you can just ask the patients to download them. You can monitor actually how many steps they are walking in a day to begin with, and then set targets for them that okay, now you have to achieve this much and cross these many steps a day. Same way, many of the patients have smartwatches, many of us have smartwatches, so we could follow the same on the smartwatch as well. What is the current scenario and possibilities? So in COVID-19 situation where there are a lot of people, there are a lot of OPDs which are not working, patients are not feeling safe to come to the hospital. In such situation, tele-rehab is the best option, and it has worked wonders. Like we have seen a lot of patients till now, and we have many patients who feel that tele-rehab is much better than what they have to come here and do, and they find it more convenient. It is using less time in traveling. It is, and they feel that they are just at home and they can have that quick 45-minute session and get back to their work. So tele rehab is one of the option, and it's very useful. Now, what are the recent advances and trends? So, as you could see on the right top, there's a belt. So, this is the belt which could actually monitor somebody's ECG. So, usually when the patients come over here, we have these big monitors. They are not actually big, they are mobile size monitors, but and there are a lot of cables that they wear, and we monitor them on our screen. But if they are not able to come over here, this is what we provide them for their home. They can wear it at home, and we have a special app and technology. So as you can see on the laptop, we could see their ECG when they are exercising with us. Let me play that video for you so that you can see how it looks. Okay, they don't have the So as you can see, she is making him do exercise. She's talking to them, and we are seeing the patient's live ECG over here. So I think I would like to end my presentation over here, and we would open it for question and answer. So I just would like to Sharad and Gitanshu to please come online so that we can see what are the question and answer and discuss.
Okay, ma'am. So first question is name of the belt.
Name of the belt. It is a Frontier X. It's a belt which is known as Frontier X, and I think they are the first one to provide it. Like in India, we are the first one to use it, and maybe in the world, we are the first one to use it. And it's very interesting. They have used it for the marathon runners in Tata Mumbai Marathon last year. Around 50 to 100 runners were given this belt, and the quality of it is excellent. Like there are no artifacts, nothing, and we can actually give it to patient and ask them to buy it, and they can keep it forever with them, and it's nice. It's very nice. Yes. What is the next question? Hmm? Can you please demonstrate the test? Kajal has asked that. Can you please demonstrate the test you mentioned in the slides, like treadmill test and stress test, etc.? Kajal, thank you for asking this, but it is not possible to demonstrate the test itself. But I'm very sure there are a lot of videos available on Google online that how these tests are conducted. Just to brief you about it, like a typical treadmill test or a standard stress test, it is done on the treadmill. The patient is hooked up with 12 ECG leads, and they take their vitals, and typically the treadmill is started at certain speed and certain elevation, and every 3 minutes the speed and elevation increases. So it gradually increases for 3 minutes, remains stable. Again, after 3 minutes, it will increase, and it goes on till the patient is completely exhausted, or they find any changes in the ECG, or they find any problems in the blood pressure, or something like that, or patient has symptoms, you know. So that is when they stop the test, and then they have a lot of other data which they collect and then gather the information and give it. I hope it is helpful. Uh, Ma'am, please tell the low level exercise testing. Just sing. So, low level exercise testing, I had mentioned one slide onto it that you can do a 6-minute walk test. Nowadays, there are 2 minutes walk test available. Then there are 3 minute step test available. Then there is 1 mile walking test available. So, 6-minute walk test is also a very sub-maximal exercise test. And suppose if I tell a patient to do a 6-minute walk test, they are very fragile. Even if they can do 2 minutes, they can take a break after that. It's called symptom limited because that person had symptoms at 2 minutes, could not complete it. They can rest, and then if they feel okay after that, within that 6 minutes, they can again start walking, finish remaining time, and come back. So we actually measure the distance that they could cover in those 6 minutes, and it gives a lot of useful information. So for me, that data will be useful because I know that this person is getting tired in 2 minutes. So I have to give them exercise something even lower than that, you know. That's how you decide. What is Covenant's formula? Okay, let me open my slides again. I have shared it there and you can take a screenshot. You can find it in the books as well. Let me just see. There. That's the Covenant's formula. And yeah, you'll find it in all the books of cardiac rehab and physiotherapy. So we have a lot of study to catch on to. Okay. When can strengthening exercise be started through sternotomy? Okay, this is very nice question. Okay, so post sternotomy, usually there is something called as sternal precautions. Okay, so this bone is actually cut, divided in two parts, and then united again. It's kind of a fracture. So it takes around 2.5 to 3 months to heal. So any exercise or activities which is leading your arms to go behind your body should not be done. Any exercise or activities which uses your front pectoral muscles, okay, those should not be done. Of course, you can do light intensity exercise for your upper back muscles. So we usually typically use TheraBands. So they are the safest and within certain range. And any kind of weightlifting also, if we're doing, we start at a very gentle level till 90-degree level, and we avoid rotational movements at the sternum. So that one has to take care. One additional thing you can tell the patients to avoid is taking weight on their arms. You know, the most common problem or mistake I see patients, they use their arms to get up, you know, to lean on the arms. So those things we have to educate them to avoid about that. What is the next question is Mustafa Rangwala. Okay, he's my colleague. Thank you for asking this. He's asking that what is the average duration and criteria to discharge the patient from cardiac rehabilitation? So usually the guideline says that it has 36 sessions are the minimum required sessions for somebody to reach at peak. Now, depending on somebody's goal, the duration may vary. There are few patients who are with us, they finish in 3 months and then we give them the home exercise program. There are another kind of patients who want to do on their own, but they still want to monitor. So we call them here after that discharge once in a week so that they are still following up with us, but they are doing everything on their own. They just have to come once. And there are other kind of patients. They are coming to us like 5 years, 6 years since the time we had begun, and for them the goals are very different. So actually, Mustafa is only seeing one of our patients for marathon running. So he's done uh, multiple 10 kilometers run, and he's done half marathon last year, and he's taking treatment with that. So depending on what kind of goals the patient has, it can go on, or they can just continue with the community based maintenance program on their own. Okay, we'll take the next question. Dr. Julie is asking, in exercise prescription, aerobic exercise and strength exercise both should be included in 1 day protocol, or should we do alternative? Julie, we can do it both together in 1 day. What we typically can do is we can rotate the muscles for strength training. So, because you need to give them at least 48 hours break for the same muscles before training it. So, suppose today we are doing upper body exercise, a patient will come next time, we'll make them do lower body exercise. Again, they'll come next time, we'll make them do upper back exercise, so that there are lesser chances of having DOMS. Otherwise, aerobic and strength can be given on the same day. Okay, next question. They is asking how talk test indicates about ventilatory threshold and VO2 max. They, I have not come across any literature which till now suggests that it suggests all these things. Talk test just tell you that what is the exercise intensity for that typical person, and it helps us to actually modulate, not even prescribe. But suppose you have told them, this person, that you do treadmill at 5 kilometers speed, and at that speed, if you feel that this patient is not able to speak complete sentences or taking too many breaks between the words, then you know that this patient is on a higher intensity exercise and you may want to slow him down. Krishna is asking, what is the major difference between treadmill test, stress test, and VO2 max test? So, okay, there is a huge difference. The treadmill test usually is, in layman's language, all the patients, they say that they underwent treadmill test, which is usually a stress test, which is done by the hospitals for investigation. VO2 max test, on the other hand, can be done, like, it could be done on the treadmill, it could be done on the field, it could be done on the cycle, and it may include the same test protocol that we use for stress tests, or may not. You know, it is looking at also a different thing. So it, of course, stresses out the patient to the maximum. There are few common things, but it also looks at the amount of oxygen inhale, amount of carbon dioxide exhale. So it depends on what are you looking for, you know. It is on that. Next, please.
Finish. Finish, ma'am.
Okay.
Questions are finished. Yeah.
Questions are finished. Okay, I'll just scroll down that if there are any. Okay, somebody is asked that can 6 minute walk test be done on the treadmill? No, we cannot do 6 minute walk test on the treadmill. Is there, Nupur is asking, is there any specific book for exercise prescription? As you remember, Nupur, I had shared guidelines. There are AACVPR guidelines. There are ACSM guidelines. So that is American College of Sports Medicine. These are all the guidelines that you could refer for exercise testing and prescription. Somebody, Dr. Namisha Goel is asking, how can we use Holter test and in what cardiac condition? So, Dr. Namisha, we don't prescribe Holter test usually. It is been done for patients who are having a lot of arrhythmias at rest or during exercise, and usually they are prescribed by the cardiologist. Here, Dr. Ashish Contractor is the preventive cardiologist. So, when we notice that certain patient has a lot of irregular rhythms of on ECG, then we discuss with them, and usually the cardiologist is consulted, and then they see the need and prescribe the Holter test. Um, Somebody's asked Janetha Johnson that in heart transplant patient, when can we start strength training? So, Janetha, again, we can start strength training soon, but for a heart transplant patient, the way we do the exercise is very much different, and we go very slow. They need lot of warm up, they need lot of cool down, and because their physiology of heart rate response and blood pressure response is completely different in a transplanted heart. I think it's very difficult to describe in one line or answer over here. I have written a chapter entirely on it, that how to see patients for exercise prescription in transplant patients. So you could maybe refer that book, which is Principles and Practice of Physical Rehabilitation. So in a detail, if you want. Are we physios authorized to do maximal level tests? I would keep this question open, and it depends on who you are doing it with. And usually at our center, before doing any maximal test, we consult the patient's cardiologist or cardiac surgeon. And usually for patients, it is not indicated because we don't need a maximal test to decide an exercise prescription. So even if you are thinking of doing it, you should consult their cardiologist. Somebody's asked, if we do not have a belt Frontier X, then what would you recommend the alternative process? So I understand there are a lot of setups that don't have these kind of facility of monitoring ECG and everything. You could simply use a pulse oximeter to monitor their heart rate. Could use RPE scale along with it, and you could use a simple BP equipment to just keep a check onto all these three parameters. And as long as you know what you are doing and how much intensity of exercise you are prescribing, it is all okay to go ahead with it. Somebody's asked, how can we calculate 1 RM? How can calculate resistance intensity at 40 and 60%? I think we are falling short of time, and these are questions which we could find in some of the books. They are basics, progressive resistance exercise, first or second year of physiotherapy curriculum. So we could refer those books and find those answers. I think Sharad, I'll take the last question, okay, so that then we can move on. And I think we are
Yeah,
crossing the time limit. So
running of
Pooja
time.
has asked, can ECG monitoring be done in aquatic environment also? It is very nice question, and thank you for asking this. So the usual ECG leads that we have over here in our center, we cannot use it inside the water. However, the belt that we have got is water resistance. So somebody can do swimming with it, and we could monitor the ECG. So it's like that. So I think we would
Um,
like to close it over here, and I'm so glad
so,
that just okay. I'll just take minutes. Okay. So I was very glad that we had such an enthusiastic crowd to attend it and asking so many interesting questions. And I hope it was useful for everyone. And once more, Gitanshu and Sharad and Ashray team, I am very thankful to all of you for providing such an opportunity to share information.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. We on behalf of Asha and the entire core and organization team, student of Government Physiotherapy College of Jodhpur, and the participant watching us, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to you for progressing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. Asha would like to extend the gratitude to you for taking out time from your busy schedule and putting your utmost efforts in sharing your knowledge to us. I would like to also wish you the best on behalf of my whole team for your future endeavors. We all know that organizing a webinar is a teamwork, and I would like to thanks to this opportunity to thanks our whole organizing and marketing team for organizing the webinar. And last but not the least, this wonderful webinar would not been possible and successful without the active participation by the participants. We all thank you for supporting us at the Ashray in our thin and thick and making it a huge success. I hope you all would imbibe from this topic. Thank you so much for everyone. Namaste.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, ma'am.